Good morning and thanks for joining us today. To the media on the line, please press star 1 to line up for questions. I will now invite Minister Farnworth to give his remarks. Minister Farnworth.
Thank you. Good morning, and I'd like to gratefully acknowledge that we are gathered on the territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. I'm Mike Farnworth, the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General. Off the top, I want to speak to the vast majority of British Columbians who have been doing an extraordinary job of keeping COVID-19 out of our communities. Physical distancing has become a regular part of our lives, as has wearing a mask when distancing isn't possible. We have made great sacrifices to protect our elders in long-term care and to keep our healthcare system functioning safely. Collectively, our actions have helped curb the spread of COVID-19. The unfortunate reality is that this pandemic is not ending soon, but together we will get through it. Now more than ever, this is a time to be selfless. It is a time to tell friends and family that breaking the rules will hurt us all. We can't let the bad decisions made by a few erode the progress that we have made together. And while we need to have patience, while we need to be kind to each other, we also need to redouble our efforts to keep each other safe and to flatten the curve. As we've all seen over the past few weeks, there is a small minority of selfish individuals across the province who are disregarding the public health measures in place. Our provincial and regional health officers, and indeed most British Columbians, have worked too hard and sacrificed too much to keep transmission rates low. I know many of you have concerns over the spikes in cases amongst young people. There is no excuse to disregard the responsibility we share to keep each other safe in this pandemic. And we've all seen it in the news or in our neighborhoods. Large house parties, unsanctioned events on our streets, on our beaches. Enough is enough. These irresponsible actions are putting our most vulnerable at risk. These actions could cost people their lives, and that is why stricter enforcement is necessary. That's why today, effective immediately, the province is enabling police and other enforcement officers to issue $2,000 violation tickets to owners or organizers for contraventions of the Provincial Health Officer's order on gatherings and events. This includes violations such as hosting or organizing a gathering or event in excess of 50 people, not keeping a list and contact information of everyone who attends an event, or hosting more than 5 guests gathered in vacation accommodation, such as an Airbnb. And to be clear, just because your party has less than 50 people does not make it legal. You must follow all guidelines. So, if you're hosting a large penthouse party, organizing a street gathering, or drum circle on the beach, we will be watching. The $2,000 violation tickets will be going to owners and organizers where unsafe events take place. We'll be targeting venues, promoters, and as necessary, we'll also be taking action against problematic attendees and individuals. To this end, police and other enforcement officers will be able to issue $200 violation tickets for anyone actively encouraging large gathering or events or refusing to leave or disperse when directed to do so, and $200 violation tickets for those refusing to follow the safe operating plans of businesses or anyone who engages in bullying or abusive behavior towards employees. People make mistakes. And if you're asked to leave a gathering, leave. Don't yell at the waiter who asks you not to push your tables together at a restaurant. Don't be belligerent towards the hardworking people who are trying to keep us all safe. In addition to the police, To help enforce these measures, we're calling on staff from various provincial ministries to help issue these tickets for the duration of the COVID-19 pandemic. This includes liquor, cannabis and gaming inspectors, community safety unit inspectors, and conservation officers. WorkSafe BC investigators will also assist through their existing authority and tools. The province is building a comprehensive and integrated compliance and enforcement regime to put a halt to bad actors in all corners of BC. That includes working with local governments to revoke business or liquor licenses where issues occur. This is an all-hands-on-deck approach. Our public health officials have done so much to guide us through this pandemic. They are busy contact tracing, supporting people in self-isolation, managing outbreaks, and preparing our schools for students to return. We cannot expect our health officers to break up parties in the middle of the night, scan social media for unsanctioned events, or be available in every corner of the province. It's time to take a tougher stance. Time to be clear. From this point forward, we're going to make sure those making selfish decisions are risking more than their reputations. I'm disappointed that stricter enforcement has become necessary. British Columbians have enough to deal with right now. We need to hold the line, to follow the guidance of the provincial health officer. Right now, we need to worry about our collective health. To report concerns around order violations from event organizers, venues or individuals can contact their local government bylaw office. Local bylaw offices can help follow up on concerns and engage police departments, health officers, and WorkSafe BC as necessary. If you're unable to reach a local bylaw office, contact your local police department's non-emergency line. And remember, you may not know someone's individual circumstances, so we ask that you use your best judgment and not jump to conclusions. I'd like to acknowledge and thank local governments and their bylaw officers for their continued collaboration and cooperation with the province. We must hold our ground. We cannot let bad actors ruin it for the rest of us. I can assure you that the province will do everything we can to stop the shameful practices and keep people safe. We need to ensure that all public health orders and orders issued under the Emergency Program Act are followed. And remember, a party is not worth someone's life. Let's get back on track. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And before we take questions, a reminder once again to the media to please press *1 to line up for questions. We will be taking one question and one follow-up at this time. And please do not mute your phones. You will not be heard until I call your name. We begin today with Rob Buffum, CTV. Rob, go ahead, please.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Minister. I'm wondering, you've talked about the host or operator would be the person, as I understand it, who would be subject to the fines primarily. But what about a scenario, say last Friday in Saanich, there was a party with upwards of 100 teenage kids out on the street. How, so that, you know, if they're listening, how is this going to be enforced in relation to them if there's not an obvious organizer or host of a party?
Well, certainly the police have the ability to issue the $200 attendee violation tickets, and clearly, you know, the police making an order telling individuals to disperse. And if they refuse to, or they're being belligerent, then they would be able to issue a $200 violation ticket.
Do you have a follow-up?
I do. I'm just wondering about the scenario of a house party, and I'm hoping you can just confirm or clarify that I understand this correctly. If there's a house party and there's 50 people, that's allowed, but let's say, you know, 38 of them are gathered in a kitchen, as often happens. Would there be tickets? I don't think there would be, but you tell me, would there be tickets handed out to individuals who are standing closer than 2 meters apart? Or what would happen there if the police show up and there's, I don't know, 50 or more people there, and there's also violations in terms of physical distancing? Who's on the hook for that, and would that be enforced?
Well, first off, whenever there's a gathering and it's not just about 50 people, the provincial health officer has in place rules that you are to maintain to be able to maintain 2 meters of social distancing. Again, police have their discretion, but if you have 38 people crammed into a kitchen and there's no social distancing being able to take place, then clearly that's in a violation of the order, and the owner would be subject to a $2,000 ticket. And for example, if the police indicated that people had to leave and they chose not to leave, or they were being belligerent, then of course they would be they would get a $200 ticket.
The next question comes from Jordan Armstrong, Global.
Good morning, Minister. In addition to police, you also mentioned that many members of the civil service will be involved in this sort of scofflaw patrols. So roughly how many, and will they have the same ability to issue those tickets as police?
Yeah, they're what are known as special constables, and so they would have the authority to be able to issue tickets. So that's why the list includes community safety unit officers, conservation officers, for example, as the kind of special constables who would have the ability to issue a ticket.
Follow up, Jordan?
And I'm just curious. I mean, we've heard a lot in the last couple of weeks about trying new platforms to get the message out to young people. But do you think we're at the point where the message is out, most people have heard it, but we're really just dealing with people now who are ignoring it?
We are dealing with a small minority of people. The vast majority of this people in this province are following the guidelines. They are doing the responsible thing. And so what we're seeing, and particularly as from Dr. Bonnie Henry has said, a number of these spikes that we've seen in cases are coming from private house parties. They're coming from inside residences. And that's the real problem. And it's a small minority of people. And so that's what these enforcement measures are targeted at.
Thank you. The next question comes from Brenna Owens, Canadian Press.
Yeah, thank you. And this has kind of been answered, but I guess I'm just wondering if I could go a bit deeper. Like, I'm just wondering about, police might not always, or bylaw officers might not hear about a house party until, by the time people have already mingled. I'm just wondering, it seems like these $200 tickets are if people refuse to disperse, but what about if they're just clearly in violation? Don't you think that would be more of a deterrent?
Look, police use their discretion on these kinds of situations all the time. And what we're wanting to do is to get the message out that, look, there are consequences for not following the health orders. So in the case of a house party, and the rules are there, and you can go online and find the rules about the gatherings. And the reality is this: local communities and local bylaw officers often have a very good idea on where those problem properties are and who the repeat offenders are, as do police, because it's not just COVID-19 that they're often called to an unruly house party, for example, and so they have the ability to go to give a ticket to the owner of the residence or an establishment or at the venue. People can be told to disperse, and they may decide that, given the nature of it, that it's not just about dispersing, but you will receive a $200 ticket for in a particularly egregious offense. But the message is this: there's a small minority. That's where these measures are targeted at, and the challenge that we're facing is very much those indoor venues, and that's what we're trying to target here.
Follow, Brenna.
Sure. I guess maybe I would just pivot and kind of use the example of that beach party that happened at Third Beach a while ago, and how enforcement might have happened under these new measures in that instance.
Well,
in terms of like individual ticketing?
In the case of that beach party, for example, one of the things that we saw was that it was advertised and people were told not to bring a mask. So here you have a case of the organizer or the promoter of the event deliberately encouraging people to ignore provincial health officer orders. The individual or individuals who are responsible for that would get a $2,000 fine. Those who were attending, and if they were not, for example, engaged in the appropriate social distancing of 2 meters, and police said, you need to disperse, and they didn't, they would receive a $200 ticket. So clearly, the message is, if you're outside and you're not following the proper orders, there's a penalty.
Thank you. The next question comes from Zara Premji, CBC. Zara, are you there?
Patrolling the streets. Hi, yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Minister. So patrolling the streets and beaches is one thing, but how do you monitor private house parties, considering that's a major source of the problems? Are you relying on neighbors to call police, and how quickly are they going to appear to break this up and start fining?
First off, as I said a moment ago, a lot of communities and their bylaw officers have a very good sense of local knowledge on the problem properties in their communities. It will be obviously a complaint-driven process, and in many ways that's what you see right now, where you have large-scale parties that, as we know, sometimes get out of control, and police attend as part of their regular operations right now. And what we're saying is that COVID-19 is now an additional layer on that as to a reason why they need to be they have to be monitored either by bylaw or by the police, and to be able to enforce the new regulations that we have put in place today.
Follow-up, Zara?
Yes. So will there be any onus property manager? Are you concerned these types of gatherings will now move further underground because of these new enforcement tools?
These will apply to property owners, regardless of whether it is a residence, for example, or a strata. And property owners do have a responsibility to know what is going on within their property.
The next question comes from Graham Woods, Glacier Media.
Well, hi, Mike. I'm just curious, how many cases of COVID have been a result of so-called violations of public health orders?
I can't give you a specific number. That's probably best addressed to the provincial health officer. But what I can tell you is that in her reports over the last number of weeks and the increase that we have seen in the number of cases, it has been specifically mentioned that those private indoor residence gatherings have been a key driver in the increase in the cases that we have seen.
Follow-up, Graham?
Right. So if police enter a kitchen with 30 people, couldn't that be 5 cohorts of 6 people that are distanced apart? Like, how are police proving any of this? And what's your basis for all this?
Well, first off, you don't just say, oh, there's 30 people in here and we're 5 cohorts of 6 people. That doesn't fly right now, and it doesn't fly with these regulations in place. The guidelines that the provincial health officer has put in place under her order are pretty clear. You have to be in a space that manages to maintain the appropriate 2 meters of social distancing.
The next question comes from Marcelo Bernardo, News 1130.
Hi, Minister. Thank you for taking my question. I just wanted to ask you, at any point leading up to this with the state of emergency, have you considered imposing a curfew like they did in Italy? And if not, why?
No, we have not considered putting in place a curfew, and any decision around that would certainly have to be done on the recommendation of the provincial health officer.
Follow-up, Marcelo?
Is that possible? Just following up, would it be possible to do something like that or enlist police and BC Hydro to cut off power to a house party or a DJ setting up in the middle of Vancouver's entertainment district?
I mean, certainly, something like that is possible. But what I would say right now is we're dealing with a small minority of people, and we believe that these measures will be effective in dealing with that. Clearly, if there was, something being set up in the middle of the entertainment district, it wouldn't just be a case of having Hydro turn the power off. The police themselves would have just under other measures and orders that are already in place to deal with a situation like that.
Thank you. The next question comes from Bob Mackin, Breaker News.
Hi, good morning. In California, authorities are empowered to disconnect power from party houses that are violators. Why are you not empowering BC Hydro to do the same in BC?
Right now, we're identified these measures as the appropriate response to be able to deal with the situation, and we think that as we've been engaged in is progressive step-by-step enforcement, and we will continue to do that. And we think that these measures will be able to deal with the situation.
Follow, Bob?
Yes. Back in April, you had a similar Get Tough announcement on the issue of price gouging with fines up to $2,000 for that. And there were thousands of complaints to Consumer Protection BC and voluminous evidence. But I checked yesterday and still there's no provincial violation ticket for anyone regarding price gouging. Why will this be different? Why should the public have any faith that you're actually going to get tough and there will actually be fines?
Well, the fact of the matter is that the fines are in place. And at the very beginning of the pandemic, in relation to price gouging, we made it clear because there were examples of some price gouging taking place. In those cases, material was confiscated. We put out what the penalties were going to be. And it isn't just about levying a fine, but rather it's sending a message that government takes this seriously. And the reality is, since then, the issue has, people have gotten the message. All of those cases are investigated by Consumer Protection BC. In this particular situation, again, we're seeing a small minority of people who are, either willfully ignorant and deciding that they don't have to follow the rules. We're letting them know that yes, they do, and that there will be financial penalties. And I fully expect that people will take this into that they will be enforced, and that's why it's being done.
Next question comes from Mike Hager, Globe and Mail.
Hi, thanks for taking our question. You've mentioned outdoor parties quite a bit, but the best available science doesn't point to transmission being as big a problem there as indoor partying. Is there going to be a focus on indoor house parties or maybe underground events as opposed to beach gatherings and maybe the odd sound system set up outside?
Actually, I think most of the questions that I have been answering have been about the indoor events. I think I've been asked, the one question about outdoor. I've made it clear that our focus and our big concern are those indoor parties that have been taking place in private residences. That's where the significant transmission has been taking place.
Follow up?
Yes. Okay, so it's been almost a month since new rules were put in place for short-term rentals and partying there. How many tickets have been issued, and what has that done to crack down on people partying at houseboats, Airbnbs, places like that?
In terms of short-term rentals, I can try and get you any numbers we have on that. But today's enforcement rules is about ensuring that we have consistency right across the province, so that there is a standard penalty and that people and the public know exactly what it is.
We have time for one more question this morning. Oh, do you have a follow-up? I'm sorry about that.
I did get a follow-up.
Mike, that was a follow-up? The next question comes from Mary Griffin, Check News. And that will be the last question
hi.
for this morning.
Oh, thanks very much. Minister, I was just wondering, these fines that are coming in, is there any, if you find that it's not curbing the behavior to the extent that you're hoping, would there be any escalation? Do you have any plans to escalate the action that you're taking today?
As I said earlier, what we've always taken is a progressive approach, and the reality is most people are abiding by that. Most people are doing their job. Most people are abiding by the rules. We have a small minority who aren't. We're stepping up the level of enforcement on them. I expect people to respect and to follow the changes that we've made today. And again, if there are a small minority of that subset that don't, then we may look at further additional measures.
Follow-up, Mary?
Yes, thank you very much. And one thing I was wondering about, you mentioned also there's going to be a fine for those who engage in abusive behavior, for example, against servers in a restaurant. And I just wanted to ask you about that. And also, in the case of where someone posted about the beach party, don't bother carrying a mask, is there, when people are putting in writing, don't take these measures to protect your health, is there any risk of that person who's organizing that event who could face potentially criminal charges?
If you're ignorant enough and stupid enough to encourage people to attend an event and not to follow provincial health officer orders, then you're setting yourself up for a fine. And of course, depending on what you do and how you do it, there may well be potential of criminal charges that could follow from something like that.
Thank you, Minister. And that's all the time we have this morning. Thank you all for joining.